It's time for a rapid review of the new Killer Mike album here on the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank.
All right, you heard the man. We are here to do a rapid review, not our normal long-winded detailed reviews. No, this is going to be quick and snappy and to the point. And the album is Killer Mike.
And the Midnight Revival.
Soldiers and Sinners?
Songs for Sinners and Saints.
I thought we were going to cut it out, but then you nailed it. So fuck it. There you go. But there's a reason why I really don't know what it is exactly. A, because it's worded. B, by the way, album cover, terrible.
Terrible. Yes.
Terrible.
Yes. Yeah, there's a few reasons that it's a rapid review. I mean, one, it was just came out randomly.
Like
right?
We heard it before you did because we're on the RTJ mailing list.
That's
Speaking
right.
of.
Oh, God. See, I'm going to fuck it up. There we go.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, because it came out technically today, August 2nd, but 3 days ago, 2-3 days ago, if you're on the email list, you got a link to download the this new album, which is being called an epilogue to Michael, his Grammy Award-winning album from the previous year.
Got it.
So it makes sense for us to really not, I mean, it's an album and it's not an album, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that'll be part of the review. Yeah. In the meantime, we're going to do things a little differently, starting with this one. In the past, you've heard us talk about it, give the ratings at the end, but we decided your time is too valuable.
That's right.
For that kind of tomfoolery and nonsense and chicanery. So we're going to go ahead and just give you our scores for the categories that we use to rate them, and then the overall score. Then we're going to talk about it. So I will kick it off since I'm already talking. My categories are lyrics, presentation, musicianship, and songcraft. Lyrics, I give it a 5. They're good rap lyrics. Not great, not terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Kid Rock. And Kid Rock's not rap anymore anyway. Never was, really. Presentation, I give it a 3. The mixing wasn't good.
Okay.
It sounded half-assed. It's hard to quantify, but that's how it sounded.
Yeah.
Musicianship, a 4. And again, with hip hop albums, musicianship is basically code for the beats.
Right.
They were standard hip hop beats. This could have been anyone. You could have told me it was produced by anyone. You could have told me that he went online and bought stock music.
But, yeah, there were points where very much so. Like they entered in trap beat, please.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Google search.
And then songcraft, a 3. It seems like there was not really any thought to how they were organized or put together. So add that all up, I give it a 4 out of 10. And to be honest, that's probably with 1 or 2 points of extra bump because I love Killer Mike and I love Run the Jewels.
Yes.
So I gave it a 4.
Yeah. For me, the 3 scores I go to, or the 3 ways I rate albums are originality, repeatability, and cohesion. For originality, I gave a 4. There's not a whole lot original about it. There's some heavy gospel elements that he gets into over and over again, and I don't hear a lot of rap albums like that. Maybe it's a whole subgenre. There probably is, but mixing sort of more hardcore rap elements, typical rap elements with the gospel stuff. I guess it's somewhat original, but lyrically, to Tank's point, there's nothing original about it. I've heard literally all of this before in different ways, and I didn't really need to hear about the Grammys over and over again, which we'll talk about, I think, in a minute.
I have theory on this.
Yeah. Reputability 3, I'm not going to listen to it again.
Nope.
There's no track I'm going to play again. There's too much great music out there for me to listen to mid stuff.
Full disclosure, I didn't get through all of it once.
Yeah. So,
I mean, by the time I got halfway or more through a song, I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And that says a lot for 2 huge RTJ fans, right? It just shows how different his solo stuff is. And then cohesion, I gave a 6. To me, it's relatively cohesive. There are a couple stretches where he slows down in tempo for 2 or 3 songs in a row, and then he ratchets it back up. It sounds like one piece, but the one piece isn't very good.
Yeah.
So that's a 4, a 3, and a 6. That's 13 divided by 3. It's like a 4.5,
That's
5.
Tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that rounds out. I thought you were going to give me something easy. It'd be like, 12 divided by 3. Stand by, everyone.
A 4, a 3, and a 6.
So that's 13 divided by 3, 4.3. So it's a 4.
It's a 4. Yeah. And that's
a 4, which means the extended play podcast score for this album is an 8 out of 20. Big 8 about here. So anyway, let's talk about why it is. Now, disclaimer first. It is not, it's an album, but not really. You could argue this is a collection of B-sides.
Yes.
that he put out an album and these are maybe the leftovers. And he thought, and it's probably not coincidence, it was free to download. And I know you have some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
To people on the mailing list. And now, but then don't call it an album and don't sell it.
Yeah, because he's pressing vinyl. Like, they're doing the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not a full-throated album.
No.
And, so you might say, okay, well, yeah, you gave it a shitty score, but come on, it's not a real album. Well, then don't release it. A lot of people don't release stuff that's not as good.
Mixtapes are a thing.
Right.
Right. In hip hop, it's the only place where they're a thing, where you just put out stuff that's totally not official. This is going to be official.
So my little headline that I like to put on them is I just say, Killer Mike, he seems to be one gear lower when recording with anyone or anything other than Run the Jewels.
That's a good way to put it. One gear lower.
Yeah. Like, it's not peak Killer Mike. His MC skills here are just as strong as always. He's still a top tier MC.
For sure.
But the lyrical content is just boring.
It's boring.
And the music comes off as really generic. Now, Michael, as I understand it, which is the album that this follows up, was almost more like an emotional, it was a personal thing. It's something that needed to be done, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But even then, to be honest, I listened to that album once.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Grammys earlier. I think, and I love Killer Mike.
Yeah.
I think he needs a heat check. I think he's maybe smelling his own farts a little bit. And RTJ is finally getting maybe some of the respect it's due. Killer Mike is finally getting the respect.
Yes, he's going on talk shows and like people are putting him out for like political office, right?
Right. So he deserves it. He's put the work in. He deserves his flowers. But I feel like maybe it got to his head a little bit, and he didn't realize this wasn't very good.
Okay.
But in the midst of all the press and everything, saying, "Oh, people are going to want to hear this."
Yeah, and his crew's not going to tell him this is no good.
Yeah.
Right.
I just feel like this is something that's like,
yeah,
okay. And to be honest, it's another. Every year that passes, I feel more and more like RTJ is LP.
Oh, you think so?
And Killer Mike just drops killer features on it.
Okay. Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Because, again, I love Killer Mike.
Yeah.
But just imagine if they went and did their own things. I think what LP goes on to create sounds a lot like Run the Jewels. He does the beats.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Right?
In that way, yeah, sure.
So, I don't know. I feel like Killer Mike, I think what we're seeing here is there's no way he could reproduce it. Like, the heart and soul of RTJ is LP.
Yeah. And to me, in my experience with LP solo work, it's so lyrically dense.
Yeah.
I think he changes his style a little bit for RTJ and makes him more out front and easily accessible.
Yep.
And that's part of why that chocolate and peanut butter works so well in that mix. And Mike steps his game up. He's angrier. I feel like definitely more political. Yes. And it's that, so it's subject matter, it's delivery, it's all that stuff. And they bring it in that combination. And I think
it could be intentional. It could be. It's like maybe you sit down, Killer Mike goes, "Yeah, I'll use my best shit for RTJ because RTJ is my group,
maybe,
right? And this is my second tier stuff,
sure. Yeah,
but okay,
yeah,
it's just weird. Yeah. I don't know.
But the Grammy thing too is like we were talking about before the show that I was like he did win a bunch of Grammys and then he got arrested, which is a whole thing that he addresses on this album. Talk about smelling your own farts. One, it's a Grammy that I don't think people don't care a lot about Grammys anymore. Right. Secondly, his competition was shit. It was like Metro Boomin, a Nas album I didn't know existed, Travis Scott Utopia, which even for everybody that blows Travis Scott, people hated. Yeah. Like his competition sucked. So come on,
it was kind of a Lifetime Achievement Award Grammy to begin with. Yeah. He probably could have put this turd out and gotten a Grammy out of it.
It's possible. But yeah, I had the same feeling. Like I've said in the past, whether it's in rock music or indie music or in hip hop, I don't like gospel. I don't connect with it. I don't connect with gospel vocals. Yeah. And there's a lot of, it's called Killer Mike and the Mighty Midnight Revival. Like this is clearly like there are religious undertones over and over again in this album.
Which is fair enough in that it's legit, it's organic.
You do you. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I believe every bit of what he's saying. Yeah. He's talking a lot about how the devil's trying to bring him down and God's trying to bring him up. And that is, right, tale as old as time, good and evil. That makes a great story. In any kind of, right, like in literature, in movies, it's good versus evil. And it does make sense in hip hop. I just don't care to hear about it a whole lot.
And and that same ethos has been done much better on RTJ4.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
So he brings up some of the same topics, but much better.
Yeah.
So anyway. But you had some, and I think some well-founded, we were both irritated with the method in which it was released.
Yeah. So you get the free download And it's pretty simple. You download a zip file. And I was saying to Tank earlier, like it's wild that it's easier to unzip a zip file on your phone than it is on desktop. Like I just tapped on it, it unzipped it. It didn't ask me if I needed extra software, if I wanted to extract all of the files or just some of them.
Exactly. Like shout out to Windows, not a bad shout out.
Right.
A fuck you to Windows. Right. What do you think I want to do with the fucking zip file? Do I want to extract it? Yeah, it's literally its only purpose in life.
It's so bad. Anyway, so in order to play it now, I'm not going to play it in the Files app. Spotify, which is my primary music streaming service, it does have a feature where you can listen to local music. It's called Local Files. You basically, it automatically puts a folder in your Files app that says Spotify. You drag the files over there, and conceivably, when you go to My Music in Spotify, you tap on Local Files, and there you have the album. 4 of the tracks did not even show up. They showed up out of order, and then, of course, we're carrying the wrong metadata.
Yep.
So, amazingly, the cover art came through.
Thank God.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Why that shitty cover art came through. Anyway, it's just a really poor listening experience. So I ended up having to go back in the Files app, open up a separate tab on my phone to find out what the actual track order is, because sequencing matters. We talk about it all the time.
Yep.
I want to make sure I was listened to in the right order. I mean, at that point, if that's most people's experience, like what? I'm curious, extended family, drop in the comments. How are you listening to music when you get these free downloads?
Right, because I listen to it at Windows Media Player, which is like the graveyard of shitty free music. Right? It's like all the stuff that it's like, here's a free download. Great, where the fuck do I play it?
It's so weird.
It goes on your PC. I'd add folder to library.
Right, so weird. Just bizarre. So now I'm going to take a little bit of a side turn here from the Killer Mike, but to talk about the new Jack White album that just dropped. And so here's a completely different way to handle that in a good way. So those of you who aren't familiar, I mean, he's obviously huge here being a Detroit guy. So last week, I believe it was, last Friday, anybody that walked into any one of the Third Man record stores, there's 3 of them. There's one here in Detroit, Nashville, and then London. When you walked in and you bought anything, they just slid an extra record in your bag. And people are like, well, what the hell is this? They're like, oh, it's just free. You pull it out. It is not even the outside record sleeve. It's the thin paper one on the inside. White label that just says no name. And there's no information about it. Put it on the record player, drop the needle. It's a new Jack White album. And no one knew it was coming. And it's great. Like immediately people are like, this is, for some reason, Jack White decided to stop doing this sort of experimenting, showing how great his chops are, and go back to what made him famous, which is making these bluesy, loud, incredibly catchy riff songs. And it's great. So that's how he does it. And after the word gets out, and actually a local DJ here was one of the people who went and bought something at Third Man, and then went to the NPR studios to host his radio show. And he's like, I'm just going to play the new Jack White record. Yeah. And he played it and had a conversation about it on air. So then people start posting about it, and Third Man Records doesn't say a word about it until all the posts start coming in. And then they say, yep, it's a new Jack White record. Go ahead and rip it.
Yeah.
And they did. And people ripped it, and it was immediately available. All the music blogs said, here's the MP3 files. They're high quality. Go ahead and rip it and go ahead and download it. Now, you still go through the same process I was talking about if you want to listen to it on your phone. So that's not a whole lot different. But as far as the drop, it was such a way to create buzz. And maybe it was worth that buzz because it's an actual new album where he's doing something different and not an epilogue to a recent album.
And he has the massive head start of owning a record pressing and record stores.
Right. Yeah. If you're not aware, Third Man Records is a pressing plant here in Detroit too. Like they press their own records. Yeah. So then they announced, I think just 3 days ago, that they were going to actually release a limited edition vinyl in the Third Man stores on Thursday, and then at indie record retailers on Friday. So if you check our Extended Play social media feed, me and myself and my 10-year-old daughter went and stood in line in downtown Detroit and got the new record. It was an awesome, cool. They had the rolling record store parked out front, and they were blasting the new album. Good vibes all along. It was like a 30-minute wait. Got in, got the record, and got out. And we've been listening to it ever since. So what a great experience as opposed to this. It's kind of a non sequitur, but well, anyway.
Nonetheless, that'll wrap up our rapid review. For the new Killer Mike quasi album.
Yeah, wasn't great.
Wasn't great. Wasn't great. We gave it an 8. Try not to masturbate.
Why?
I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this episode.
That's
we
right.
will see you. We'll see you next week with another full length episode.
Yep. See ya. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.